Welcome again to All Eyes on You, starring myself, Josh Winrow, and my co-host for today,
Jermaine Ayala.
And today we're gonna do something that I'm scared of a little bit, not gonna lie, just like a tiny bit. We're gonna go through an unfinished script that we have never shot and probably will not be shooting because you'll see why.
Yeah, you'll see why.
Jermaine, first of all, what do you remember of the script?
I remember that it's along the lines of sort of a thriller.
Yeah.
And it's mainly about a complex situation of a relationship.
Yeah, a bit.
Between two people, like three people actually.
So the original idea came from like a bad friendship, kind of.
Yeah.
The whole context of it was I was really into like sociopaths in friendships and relationships.
Yep.
And how like you can not tell sometimes when you're actually in like those friendships and relationships, and how easily the intentions can like kind of misalign.
Yep.
Where a sociopath can be like, oh, I'm doing this for you, but it's really for them. It's control. It's all this, really messed up stuff. It's a manipulation. Because of that, I did a lot of research into it. And it was at this time that I couldn't figure out what genre I wanted to pursue, right? And I was never really a horror person, a thriller person at all. I won't lie. I was never really into that. That was never really like my thing. I like, horror now that I've like really learned to appreciate it and stuff like that.
Okay.
But at the time of like this, I hadn't really like, looked into it at all. I won't lie. But this was like a thriller horror film almost.
Yeah.
It kind of has inspirations from the movie Creep.
Yep.
If you've seen that or heard of it, where you have like a friendship, for lack of better words, with a person who's clearly unwell.
Yes.
So part of the reason why we aren't making this ever is because I've rewritten this more times than I can count. I changed dialogue. I've changed mostly location. Actually, the locations have stayed the same. Characters have mostly stayed the same. It was mostly like the development of the characters I couldn't get. Like I was always obsessed with trying to make it make sense, because I have a whole thing about essentially horror movies and thriller movies are really easy to just make it about a monster and just throw whoever in.
Yeah.
The characters don't exactly matter if they're going to die, right? I didn't want that. I wanted the characters to actually have compelling backstories. I wanted them to have something. And I couldn't figure it out. So I kept rewriting it because of that. And then eventually I just kind of gave up on it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we have the script here. We have 2 copies. 2, I think, different copies at that.
Yeah. I think so.
How many pages is that one?
This
one's 14.
This one's 8.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Okay, so this is double. This is version draft 3.1, I say.
And this is, I'm pretty sure this is the first.
That's just version 2, actually.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's like version 2 of the script. So,
3.
yeah, should we just do like, you do dialogue, I'll do the scenes, and then we can stop and I can explain it a bit. So, yeah, whatever. Scene 1, fade in, interior, Jake's apartment, evening. Jake, a young 20-something, is in his apartment. He's on his computer, typing away coding. His girlfriend, Katie, early 20s, comes into the apartment, slamming the door behind her. She's wearing a nice outfit. Jake doesn't look up from the screen. She stands near him, arms crossed.
Katie, hey, so where the hell were you? Jake, I mean, clearly here coding, which I'm still doing. Hi, by the way.
He waves at her without looking up from the screen.
Katie, coding was the reason I even set up that dinner for you. Do you know how much of an idiot I looked like in front of my boss? It took me weeks to convince him to meet you. Jake, yeah, I know. I just didn't want to have to go through the rejection. Katie, rejection? He's been looking for a new coder for months, Jake. I already showed him some of your stuff, and he likes what you can do. All you had to do was show up, and you would have gotten the job. Katie, How can you not only make me look like an idiot, but stand me up?
We'll stop there. So, first thing, they're 20-something. And the setup is supposed to tell you a bit about the characters.
Yeah.
Which is Jake is a programmer who is kind of not doing anything with his life at the moment. Katie is his girlfriend who has a decent paying job, and she set up a meeting for him to get a good paying programming job. And some of the problems I had along the way for this is mostly wording.
Yeah.
And it front loads so much information in the first minute.
Yeah.
Which I felt like is already kind of
a little overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, yeah. Like just hearing you say it all at once is just already a lot. It's a lot of saying and not telling.
Yes.
And that line where it's like, oh, I mean, clearly here coding. It's just, I always had a problem with it because in one hand I'm like, oh, I'm trying to like show that he's a coder, but on the other hand I was like, that is such a dumb way to show that.
Yeah. You wanted it to be more like subtle. More like you can look at him and know he's a coder instead of him saying it outright.
Yeah. Like I wanted this whole thing to be like more visual.
Yeah.
But we can go on to the next page.
Jake, look, I'm sorry. I appreciate you trying, but maybe you shouldn't have. I'm fine with what I do now. Working at the tech store and coding in my free time, it's easier, and I don't have to worry about losing anything.
Katie stands there for a second.
Katie, well, you did lose something tonight.
She's heard slamming the door and leaving. Jake sits on the couch, finally looking up from his computer. He doesn't fight for her, doesn't get up to go after her. He just sits and looks at his computer and the door she just walked out of.
The one that got away.
Yeah. He sits alone on his phone. He texts a few people but gets no response. He scrolls through his phone looking at pictures of him and Katie. He continues to mindlessly scroll deep in his gallery, and he finds an old picture of himself and an old friend, Mitch. Jake decides to give Mitch a call. So, what can you gather from the character of Jake?
Jake is kind of oblivious, and you can tell that he's pretty self-centered in a few ways.
Yeah.
He doesn't really take in consideration of Kate's efforts in trying to get him more opportunities, and he kind of just brushes it away like it's normal, like to brush away those opportunities. So Jake is really a problem to himself.
Yeah, that's what I wanted him to be. Like I have a whole thing about like unlikable characters.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make sure that Jake was somebody who like wasn't unlikable in the sense of like, like a terrible scummy person, just more like of like an annoying, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like you had your chance. And he just constantly throughout this, I set him up to constantly like do dumb stuff where he has a chance to do something else and he doesn't.
The constant mistakes that lead him to certain things.
Mm-hmm. But then we're about to get introduced to Mitch, who is the antagonist of this whole thing, who, if I remember correctly, I came up with the character. When I actually came up with the script, I came up with a certain scene in mind, and then I wrote the rest around it. And that scene was like a torture scene.
Yes.
And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, now what's the backstory behind this? And then I came up with this character of Mitch, and then I kind of made Jake, and then Katie, and it was just an interesting kind of way of like coming about. Okay. Which I think is also a problem of why I couldn't get the story, is because I had the idea for a scene first.
Yeah, not the setup of how it's going to be.
Yeah, and then it kind of just became its own issue because I didn't have anything else to go about. So we're going to skip around a little bit.
Yep.
So the phone rings, Mitch picks up, and Jake and Mitch are outside and they're drinking, and Jake is, complaining about Katie as they kind of like reconnect.
Yeah, he's venting, ranting.
Jake is drunk, Mitch isn't, which is a little thing I put in because I wanted it to be like Mitch was like in control of the situation. He was sober, letting Jake get drunk so that he could kind of like manipulate him.
Yes.
I want to see you read this scene, so I'm going to let you go about it.
Jake.
Oh, slightly slurring his words. Do voices.
It's crazy. I'm telling you. She just left, walking out the door. I didn't even get up or say anything to stop her. 6 years right out the door. Mitch. It sounds like to me, she doesn't deserve you. She's just a bit... Jake.
Interrupting him.
But God, I still love her. Maybe I should call her. But what would I say?
Mitch sighs.
Mitch. Jake. Don't worry about her. Let's not talk about her. We haven't seen each other in like 7 years, man. I missed you. It was always me and you. I felt like you were the only one who got me. Jake. Yeah. You were always there for me. I don't know why, but Katie would say something about you being off. That's kind of like... I guess we didn't know if we wanted to keep that in or not.
Yeah, it was just too on the nose,
Yeah.
I felt like. But I wanted it to kind of like show that Katie was like... She had a feeling.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I have no idea what she was talking about.
Mitch doesn't react, just takes a sip of his drink.
Who cares what she thinks? This is Mitch. The only thing we need is each other. Me and you against the world.
Oh, name drop. That's... Oh, damn. I was so proud of that. I'm not even kidding. At the time. The two laugh, clink their drinks together before checking. Fade to black. So that's like the setup.
Yeah.
Right? That introduces you to all the characters. Subtly supposed to show that like Mitch is like there and he's supposed to be kind of a friend, a bit questionable. Jake is a bit of a loser. And Katie, I felt like didn't have enough definition.
Yeah.
And that was one of my struggles, is trying to define these characters more.
Yes.
At the time. So I'm going to skip around a bit more. So Jake wakes up in Mitch's apartment in a kind of an extra room. And...
Well, Jake tries to leave.
Yeah.
He tries to leave, but Mitch
kind of
manipulates
convinces him
and convinces him to that. Oh, you're a little too drunk, so maybe you should stay here. I'm offering you this place to stay. And,
yeah.
Jake was like, okay, I'll stay.
He was like, oh, we should catch up more and drink, play some video games. All right, so this is before one of the rewrites. There's an extra scene I put in to kind of give more definition, where what ends up happening is Mitch convinces Jake to stay over, play some video games. Like, oh, I don't have work today, so I guess, stay over. So they were playing the game, and then, like, Jake finds an old phone in the couch cushion.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, whose phone is this? And it's like, oh, it must have been my old roommate's. And then Jake's supposed to be like, that's so weird. Why would he leave without his phone? Because I was trying to, like, build up, like, a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's... Like, it's clearly dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, who the hell is going to do that? You know what I mean? But it was like one of those things where I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how to, like, build it up without it being corny and cheesy. And some of the things that sociopaths would do is they will kind of, like, talk about, like, their adventures and, like, the grandiose kind of bullshit that they're doing.
Go into, like, a whole, like, philosophy spiel of
just over dramatizing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have Mitch doing that about like, oh, his life is just so exciting, and like this is a plot point. So Mitch brings up like, oh, do you remember we were talking about getting matching tattoos? And she's like, oh yeah, I was gonna do that. Oh, I actually got one with Katie, and
it lip brushed Mitch off the wrong way.
Mitch was like, whoa, really? Can I see it? And he says, oh, a mistake for a mistake. And Jake's like, oh, that's kind of messed up, man. I don't really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my notes, this entire scene is completely, like, scribbled over. So I guess I wasn't happy with it or something. And it's just so much scribbles, like, across this entire thing. But the setup about that whole tattoo thing comes in later.
Yeah.
Here, I like this next scene. This is what we're going to do. So Jake has been in Mitch's house for a bit now, It's been like maybe a day or so. And then like, I'm trying to remember what the rewrite has. I believe I put in there something about.
Oh, he called his job.
Right, that's actually about to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so for some reason he wakes up in there again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the setup for that. All I know is he wakes up and it's like, oh, and Mitch brings him a coffee and let's just, read this scene through. Yeah. So it's that empty room again. Jake wakes up and yawns, stretches. He looks over to where he put his phone the day before and it's no longer there. He goes to open the door, and at that moment, Mitch comes in with 2 coffees.
Jake. Oh, thanks. Hey, do you know where my phone is? I don't know what time it is, and I have to work today. Mitch. I handle it. Jake.
Confused.
You handled what?
Mitch takes Jake's cell phone out of his pocket.
Mitch. I told them you were quitting. Jake.
Upset.
What? You told them I quit? Mitch. Yup. Jake. Who the hell do you think you are? I actually really loved that job. It's where Katie and I met. Mitch.
Seemingly irritated by the mention of Katie.
I'm your best friend, and she was a mistake. So you need to get rid of all the reminders of her. That job isn't shit for you anyways. Jake, what the fuck are you talking about? You can't decide what is and isn't good for me. Mitch, hey man, you need to cool off. I'll leave you alone for a bit so you can calm down.
Before Jake can object, Mitch is already walking out of the room.
Jake.
Angry.
Cool off? Dude, what the fuck? I'm not messing around.
Okay. Jake tries to open the door but finds that it's locked. He calls for Mitch with no response. He rushes over to the window and finds that it's sealed. There isn't anything in the room he can use to break the window either. He tries to pull out the window, and as he's pulling, he notices dried blood on the windowsill. So, a couple of things. Back on the whole sociopath thing. A thing about sociopaths is they will sometimes kind of like make decisions for other people and in a way pose it as you're doing something wrong.
Yes.
So because of that, I wanted Mitch to be like, oh, you know what? This job's bad for you. She's bad for you. I'm going to fix this for you. I'm going to fix all those problems that you're having. And that little dried blood is supposed to like signify that like the roommate maybe didn't move out.
Yeah.
Like something else happened to him.
That would go back to why the phone was found.
Exactly.
In the couch. It would have been that.
It was supposed to be like just subtle hints instead of like saying outright like, oh, he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
So this next scene is Mitch kind of comes in with some food and Jake is like questioning him like, oh, why are you keeping me here? And Mitch is like, I'm trying to help you. Like, clearly you needed help. And, since it's been years since we've talked, clearly you need me. You reached out to me. And then Jake's like, oh, you're insane. And Mitch is like, think I'm insane? You just see, like, oh, what Katie's been doing. And he, like, takes out his phone. He's like, she's been messaging you all day trying to see where you are. Like, she's crazy, right? Yeah.
Damn.
And then Jake tries to like lunge at him to get his phone back, and Mitch like gets pushed aside, and because he gets pushed aside, he gets like offended by that.
Yeah.
So he leaves out of the room, and the only reason I put this in is because I have a little shovel thing that I really like as a prop. But he comes out of the room and comes in with a shovel and then knocks Jake out, which would just kill him, honestly.
It would have killed him.
But yeah, that's supposed to be like the turning point of the film.
Yeah, where all the shit falls down.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's this next scene. We're going to read through this next scene. This one's pretty interesting because this is supposed to be where like it gets into the slight torture and manipulation, more manipulative parts. So we're still in this one room. The biggest point was like I kept it to almost like one room, the entire film. Jake regains consciousness, this time tied up to a chair wearing a pair of old basketball shorts and a tank top. Mitch standing there and smiles when he sees he's awake.
Damn, that's kind of creepy. He like changed his clothes.
Mm-hmm. Right there.
Oh yeah. Mitch, finally, Jesus. You sleep for so long. Jake.
Sluggishly.
What? What the fuck, man? I wasn't sleeping. You knocked me out, you fucking psycho. Mitch. Psycho? I'm a psycho? You attacked me. You're so delusional. You don't even see what you're doing. You need me more than anything right now. Mitch. I've got to fix you, man. I had to get rid of your clothes. Jake. My clothes? Mitch. Yes. You never wore anything like that before. They looked terrible. Mitch. Getting rid of your clothes is just a first step. It's not enough. I will help you get better. That hair of yours looks like shit.
Mitch picks up a pair of scissors and approaches Jake. He grabs him firmly by the hair.
Mitch.
Smiling.
But don't worry. Your best friend is here to make it all better.
Mitch gleefully starts cutting Jake's hair. He's enjoying the pain he's causing him.
It's like, it reminds me of that scene from Courage, the Cowardly Dog. The guy with the clippers where he's like shaving Courage.
Freaky Fred.
Yeah, Freaky Fred. That's what it reminds me of.
See, my whole thing is I came up with these torture scenes of like what I felt would be like the most loss of autonomy.
Yeah.
Where like someone else is deciding what you're wearing,
Yeah.
someone else is deciding what your hair looks like, and like, you know, your tattoos, whatever.
Yep.
So each of those torture scenes is supposed to like show Mitch is taking more and more from him. Mm-hmm. Now I'm gonna read this next scene because for the most part it's actually just all description.
Yeah.
If you want, you can do this part. There's a little bit of dialogue.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so interior, kitchen, night. We see Mitch in the kitchen. He's seemingly cooking, but there isn't anything in the pan. He stares blankly at the fire. He comes back into the room with the hot pan in hand. Jake is still tied down and his hair is now choppily cut. Mitch silently approaches Jake with the pan. He stuffs a rag in his mouth to gag him from screaming.
Ooh. Mitch. You know what? I'm glad you called me. It's pretty obvious you needed help, and you knew that I was the only one who could help you.
He smiles.
I'm sure you're not happy with what I'm doing, but it's because of Katie this is all happening. If she didn't ruin you, then I wouldn't have to do this.
Jake is fearfully looking at him, trying to speak, but unable to. Jake starts struggling and asking him what he's doing. Mitch places the hot pan against Jake's flesh where the tattoo is, disfiguring it and his skin.
Damn.
Jake screams and thrashes. As he's doing this, Mitch has a smile on his face. And then cut to black. That was like the first scene. That was the biggest thing I wanted to do because of... I was curious about that. About like, you know, having tattoos is pretty permanent. People put out. And especially when you have a tattoo with somebody...
It's like erasing a connection.
Yeah, and like, if someone's doing that to you by force in a painful way, I was just like, that's horrifying.
Yep.
I was just trying to think of like what the most horrifying thing that I could imagine someone doing to me was, and that was something. Mm-hmm. So I added this scene because I wanted some more fear to kind of build up, some like, you know, just more build up. I felt like there was so much of the film that was just bang, 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 bang. Everything is just happening all at once.
Yeah.
So, you know, Jake is still tied up in this room. He has burns and blood all over him. Mitch comes in. Okay, no, this doesn't have that extra part that I put in. So, from the top of my head, what I remember, Mitch comes in. And he sits down, you know, does like the whole like chair Saved by the Bell thing where he flips the chair over. He's like, why did you have to make me do this? Like, you know, we're best friends and all this stuff. He goes on a whole monologue about that. And Jake's like, friends don't really do this for each other. And yeah.
It's basically like he's showing that, you know, this is what friends are supposed to be, but obviously it's a misconstrued idea of what friends are.
Yeah, exactly. It's like more about control. It alludes to his roommate where he's like, yeah, I thought you were like, you know, my roommate reminded me of you, and I thought we were going to be close, and, you know, I could heal from that. But then he started changing, too, and I tried to fix him, but I couldn't. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of alluding to, like, oh, he killed him.
Yep.
So this actually just goes right to the ending after that scene. It literally goes from the burn to this, apparently. So let's just read through it. Do you want? I can do one of the voices for this one.
Yeah.
Which do you want to be, Mitch, Katie, or Jake? Jake has the least lines in this.
I'll be Katie and Jake.
Okay, so I'm gonna be Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Katie is thrashing around, but she's tied up and can't get away. She's being dragged in right now by Mitch.
Yep.
So Katie, a mix of panicked and angry.
Jake, what the hell is going on?
Katie, you really shouldn't be talking to him like that. This is all your fault anyway. Mitch takes out a knife. Katie's panic increases as she sees the knife.
Katie.
Calmly.
We don't have to do this, Mitch. You don't have to kill me. Please, just let me and Jake go.
Mitch laughs. Mitch, I'm not going to kill you. He points towards Jake with the knife. He is. Jake freaks out. His mouth is still gagged, but he can see the fear in his eyes. Mitch walks over to him and takes the gag out of his mouth.
Jake.
On the verge of breaking.
Why? Why are you doing this?
Mitch looks closely at Jake, deep into his eyes. Okay, here's a monologue. I haven't read this in a while, so this is going to be really weird. I'm not doing anything wrong, Jake. This is all because of her. She's hurting you. I'm helping you. No one cares about you like I do or ever will. So why are you angry with me? When I'm the one trying to help you, trying to make your life better. You have nothing without me. What did you have without me? A deadbeat job, terrible clothing and hair, a disgraceful tattoo, and a worthless girlfriend. If this is anyone's fault, then it's you and hers. I think I want to take out you and hers. Mm-hmm. So it's supposed to only be, it's hers, not mine. It's just, I'm the one. Okay, this phrasing is weird. I'm just the one who's helping you fix it. You should be thanking me. Yep. So I remember this. I did so much research into this because I wanted it to sound almost like something a sociopath would say to someone in a relationship. Where it's like, you're never going to get better than me. You know how many people have probably heard something like that?
Oh, yeah.
And, I wanted to put that in there. Jake slows his breathing and nods slowly. He lets out a breath. Mitch, happily. See, you even know I'm right about this. Now, you get rid of her and things will get better. I promise you that. Don't you want to be happy? You see that little, Don't you want to be happy? Mitch cuts Jake free from his restraints and hands him the knife. Jake walks over and stands above Katie. They make eye contact with tears in his eyes. Jake lifts the knife, then goes to stab Mitch. But Mitch was ready. As Jake turns around, Mitch punches him hard in the gut, causing Jake to drop the knife to the ground near Katie. Mitch, of course you can't do it. You can't do anything to help yourself. And now I have to kill her for you. You made me do this, Jake. Jake tackles Mitch, but Mitch hits him on the back, making him fall to the floor. Mitch stands above him and kicks him while he's on the ground. Mitch is smiling, treating this whole situation as a game. Mitch, look at yourself. It's pitiful. This is your fault. All you had to do was realize I was helping you. It's just so pathetic. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to beat some sense into you. Then I'm going to slit Katie's throat. And me and you are going to go on a little trip as best friends. As Mitch is talking, he doesn't realize that Katie has gotten the knife and freed herself. Mitch turns around and to his surprise, Katie is right in front of him. Katie stabs Mitch in the gut and he falls to the ground. Katie grabs Jake and the two run to escape out the door. As Jake passes by Mitch, he grabs his leg and tries to speak. Breathing hard, unable to get the words out, Jake kicks his arm off him and they run out the room. The door opening and closing is heard. Mitch, gasping for breath, barely understandable, but I'm your best friend. Cut to black, end. Yeah.
Jeez.
It's been a while since I read through that.
Yeah.
Jeez. So a part that I do like about this is that I never wanted Katie to be a damsel.
Yeah.
She's the one who actually saves Jake in the end. Because again, Jake can't do anything for himself. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like the whole plot, essentially. He doesn't really learn from it, if I'm being honest. He just gets pushed so far that he's like, still broken.
Yeah.
And then Katie still pulls him out of it. It kind of bookends in the sense of like she was trying to help him with the job, and then she literally had to save his life.
Yep. All full circle.
Yeah, it's a full circle, full bad circle, essentially. But yeah, it's still crazy to me that like this is the most recent printed out version, but there's a whole nother version I have that has more scenes to it. So it's interesting. Off camera, Dylan was talking about how the beginning was completely different.
Yeah.
Like from I think that was like the first version. In the beginning, it's literally just, you have no idea that she set up a dinner. You have no idea that he was a programmer. It literally just starts with him kind of sitting there with her yelling like, "Oh, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm so done with this." And then she just leaves. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what's happening, which in a way kind of I feel like fits better.
Yeah, because you learn what he was doing later.
Yeah.
And it kind of pieces together at the beginning because I think it's good to start a film where there's a lot of questions, and through the film,
it answers
those questions, back to back to back. So
mm-hmm.
I think that version would definitely fit with this version.
Yeah, there's like, I won't lie, there are scenes that I really do like and some dialogue that I like. I feel like Mitch is pretty put together in it.
Yeah, I think Mitch is probably the most developed character.
Yeah, Katie, I wanted more development, but I couldn't figure out a way to do it. I feel like putting a B story for her in here, like kind of like finding Jake and then like how Mitch gets her would have been pretty good to put in.
Okay.
In terms of Jake, he does get the loser. Mm-hmm. It does front end so much exposition though, which is one of the biggest problems I have about it. And then like, I just couldn't find. There's nothing appealing or redeeming about this. I feel like, in my opinion. But that's just me. I don't know. I did write it.
Yeah, I feel like it's it's appealing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more like something happening to them. Instead of like, I'm fine with if there's no redemption.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Okay.
But him just going through it in a way is like development.
Yeah.
As his character. I feel like even though he's not fully developed, this story develops him throughout.
Yeah.
This is how you get to learn about Jake, who he is, his personality, what he does, and his relationships with two people who were very special to him. Mm-hmm. And the dynamics of each one. So Kate's dynamic with Jake and Mitch's dynamic with Jake.
Yeah.
How different they are and how like you can separate kind of the love between them. Because
that friendship is a form of love. That was like a love between Mitch and Jake. I wanted it to be like an actual friendship love. Mm-hmm. That was like the intended purpose. It was a friendship love that was turned wrong. Yes. I think on one of these papers, I think on the other one that we have, there's here, can I see that? Yeah, I have some taglines on here, some log lines. So one of them is breakups can be hard, but your friends always know how to make it easier. Mm-hmm. And then my favorite one, which I picked for it, was nobody knows you like your best friend. But yeah. So here's a question for you. Would this be something that you think that we should make? And let me ask you, the audience, listening in, watching in, what do you think of this story? Is this something that we should like revisit, or is this something that we should just continue to drop? It was an idea that I had, and I tried developing it for, at this point, oh my God, like 4 years.
Yeah.
The original concept for this came from pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I had rewritten this so many times, and I just couldn't get it there. And I kept like, I would show it to people, and people would like it, or they would say it's, decent, but it's not really me. Mm-hmm. It's not like a film that you can associate with me and like how I write and how I have my opinions on things.
Yeah.
It felt, which I will admit, it kind of wasn't. I did a lot of research into like, the sociopath stuff, the manipulation stuff. I looked into like different kinds of relationships and stuff like that. But it has very little of my own, like, I guess, what I would do in those situations.
Yeah.
Which I guess is good, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, Jake is so different than you.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that this doesn't sound like you.
Yeah, I feel like the point is that, like, he's a protagonist in a horror film. He's supposed to make dumb decisions.
Yeah.
but I want it to be like decisions in the sense of like ignorance rather than like pure stupidity.
Yeah.
In like some horror movies where it's like clearly they're just being idiots. This
Yep.
is just more like he's just oblivious.
Mm-hmm.
He's trusting too much.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think? Should we do this? Would we do this? Would you want to do this?
I can definitely see this as like a cut up Reels or TikTok story where it's in sections and they kind of have to follow through each post to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Okay.
I can definitely see it as that. As a full length film, maybe. I feel like you said, the exposition's a little too much sometimes.
Yeah.
But maybe if we frame it and cut it down in a certain way, where it's only the key points and you really get like the personality of each character, just like Mitch being weird, Jake being oblivious, and Kate just being angry because of the situation that Jake is putting on them.
Mm-hmm. So I just found like the newest version, and this is like the last printed version.
Yeah.
The version that I have on that I last worked on was 18 pages.
Yes.
Which means this film would have been probably between 20 and 25 minutes. So somehow I made it even longer.
Yes.
I
mean, most of it is descriptions that's making it longer.
Yeah.
There is some added dialogue that they kind of don't need to say.
I think in this version I added in between not dialogue, but in between scenes, because one of my notes I got from whenever showing people was that everything happens too fast. In the original version, it's literally like scene after scene. It's just immediate.
Yeah.
In this version, it's like
build up.
It's build up more. I wanted it to build up more. So let me look in here. For one, they're not outside at a park. They actually go to a bar.
Yeah.
To meet.
And then he invites him over. Jake tries to go home, but visually he's a little messed up. And Mitch kind of like puts his arm over him and just carries him out.
So in this version, the switch to like the actual like, you know, the horror doesn't happen until page 11.
Yeah.
In this. I think in that it's like maybe page 8. Like it's whenever he's like, "Oh, I told him that you quit."
Yes. Yeah, page 8.
Yeah, so it's like I added more to it just because I wanted it to be more build up. But that can always that's a double-edged sword. I feel like if you add too much, it's going to front load it too much. But if you don't have too much, then it's just going to be beat after beat and it won't hit as hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's very interesting kind of looking back at this stuff and seeing how much like, you know, my writing style has changed and like
even like you can see even through each one your perspective change.
Yeah.
Like this version is really focused on Jake. This version is focused on Kate, while this version is focused on Mitch.
Yeah.
So you kind of have all three characters in each different version written well, but you lose some of the characters in each one.
Because there's so much dialogue and there's so much like to define while also trying to create this sense of horror that I'm trying to do and make a sociopath. And I don't know, maybe I should revisit this because it's been years since I've actually looked at it.
Yeah.
And I feel like my writing's gotten a lot better. All my filmmaking skills have gotten better. So this might be something I revisit. You let me know. You let me know if this is something that we should revisit and if we should turn this into a film. But I think it's about that time to wrap, Jermaine. So,
yes. Thank you for watching. All eyes on you.
All eyes on you. It was all eyes on me today.
Yeah. We got to go through your script and about 4 years ago written.
Yeah.
2021.
Let us know if we should do this again. If there's, you know, you might want to see a script from Dylan or another script of mine, or we might even have a guest on who can bring up their old scripts.
Yeah. So definitely stay in tune. Keep up with us. You'll see.
Stay in tune.
Stay tuned.
Stay in tune.
Tune yourself to the frequency of us.
There you go. He got it eventually. All right. Well, Jermaine, give me those.
Here you go.
Cool. Get out of my house.
I got you.
Thank you. Good.